So I just want to welcome, first of all the players that are there, even though we had a bit of an issue with Messenger, but also to all the players that will be looking at this later on, or for the players that wants to watch it again. I always start by welcoming the new players, but also welcoming those who are returning. We have players that have played over 10 years, and we have brand new players, which is always exciting. I always like to say that we have some players from the US, Canada, obviously, England, Belgium, Sweden, Russia, and Mozambique. I'm in the talks. There's a player that we may have from Ecuador, which would be a bit different in getting the South American part of the world into the game. So I'm really excited about that. I like to do a quick history too. The game really started as an idea in 1993. But more officially in 1997 when I decided to create it, and we actually run the first game. The first game was actually done on paper and pen. It was really, really different than what you're about to see, but I like to still say that it was done like a while ago, and that the first player ever played the game, Ghislain, is actually still a friend of mine and may actually look at playing in the years to come. So that might be very exciting for us to see. So, like I said, the game's been around 27 years, so it has evolved, it has changed, and keeps evolving every year. And every year we have new people getting involved, and those people bring new ideas. And this year I would like to officially welcome Diego as an administrator. He will have his own players. I will send a list of who will be doing their turns with him. So I'm very excited to have him on board. And to be honest, he just came in, and already all the regency portion of the game and the new structure for detection comes from him and his feedback and some players. But Diego was instrumental writing some of the policies for it. So resources online, in the chat and online, we have the player's handbook, we have the interactive map. Again, thank you to Diego that did an amazing job. I think the players had a lot of good things to say, and with the years to come we're going to add more and more to the map, so the players have the information and can throughout the game, and not just at the beginning, click on it and get some sense of what's happening in that part of the world. We have the messenger group. You're all aware because you're here or watching this video. And we have our Facebook page. A huge thanks to Austin. Austin is the manager of our page, and he's doing a fantastic job at managing it. Just know that the Facebook page, if you're not a member, I would strongly recommend it. Just because at that point, all the stats at the end of the weeks, all the important messages, all the ranking will be put on that page and not in the Facebook group. So again, if you want to see where you're ranking and what's going on in the world, that will be the place to do it. So let's get into the game. So the game is always divided in four. So you'll see, we'll go through this spreadsheet. You went through the manual, and it's color coded to help you out, but it's four major spheres. There's the war section, there's the diplomatic section, there's the social section, and there's the economy piece. So anytime we play the game, we make a rule, it's always linked to one of those four spheres. So war, usually it's going to be a red type of color. green for the economy, except all that has to do with farming, which is kind of an orange type of color. Um, Social is usually purple, and diplomacy is usually blue. So just keep in mind that when you're doing turns and you're trying to create stuff, always ask, are you going through a war process, a diplomacy process, an economy process, or a social process? And that's going to help you to find out which are the skills that you should need, what are the infrastructure that you want, what type of civic employees do you need, or what type of military you need to have. All right. So just to keep in terms, so the four components here. So if you look at your as you're going to look through your sheets, we have some terms that are very medieval and others that are very modern. The reason we did that is a different reason. For example, peelers is very medieval, but it's a term that was commonly used. Where a hospital, if you go in different culture, different society, different nation, they called it or used it differently. So we use kind of a modern word to be clear for all the players. Also, keep in mind that some of the terms also are hard to pronounce or complicated, so we tend to go with something that's fairly simple. The game is new things for 2024. Like I said, the Regency, the Vassalage is news. The new battle interface, so the new battle module has been redone completely. It was between 10 to 15 years old. It was starting to be slow. It was starting to do mistake, and it often. So we were lucky enough to have my two acolytes from France, Nicolas and Renaud, that actually just do admin for me, and they go and create those macros and those formulas, and they're really, really great in that sense, where they are basically doing all the work behind the scene for us. We also added the new detection rules, new structures. We always do every year. So that's what's new for 24, 25. We're going to visit it and talk about it later on. So for new players, this is your starting map. So you can see it on my screen here. You have a starting map. Keep in mind, why did we ask an email address? It's because we're going to send you the map through email on an Excel document. Why? Because first of all, if we keep adding to the starting map on the Google Sheet, it becomes so big, it slows down. It's hard to zoom in, zoom out. And at one point, even if you zoom out completely, you get lost. An Excel spreadsheet, it's really easy to work with it, to move around it. Also, we have a master map that me and Diego input information. So it's a live map. And to copy to Google or copy from Google to the map, it's not really working well. Borders are usually not copied. The colors are different. So it creates all sorts of problems. So we're putting the starting map here just for this information session, just for you to look at it and follow through the video to see what a bit it's all about, and also to see your starting location. So for those who have your sheet, you can look at it and then you can figure out what's going on. So again, a lot of colors, put a bit of everything on it. So the greenish are what we call light forest or deep forest. We have kind of that beige color, which is the desert, which is a lot more yellow on your map. You have the gray area, which is light. You can have a dark gray on your map, which is our what we called mountain range, or deep mountains, that's something you cannot cross. So you have to go around it. Different type of blue, you have your lake, your rivers, and then you have your oceans at the bottom right. The V's are villages, BV are big villages, C are cities, and when it's read with a name, it's a major city. The orange is usually a resources. So what's the difference between a village, a big village, a city, and a major city? Well, a village is pretty standard. A village is 1,000 of population. It has 10% of soldiers. It has limited resources. So if you attack it, you do have money. You gain small population. But like I said, it's a quick way at the start to get going. Big villages, again, are a bit bigger, 3,000 population. Accordingly, we have a 10 to 15% soldiers, so you can expect a bit more soldiers with your big villages. Again, resources are limited there, so don't expect a lot to come back. Cities are larger, so they have 10,000 population. They have a wooden wall, so they're a bit harder to conquer, but at that point, they provide a lot more resources when conquered, or when you get them through diplomacy or the economy portion. The red with the full name, they are what we call major cities. They have a stone wall. And we'll speak about the battle system a bit later because it changed. So a stone wall usually requires siege engines. They require a lot of resources to conquer. But when you have them, you have all the resources that major city has. And then the orange part are the resources like on my map right now, we have iron. So you can actually build a mine, bring the iron to the major city. Like let's say you have Volgograd to the north, you could build your mines and they bring all the resources to that city. So just to be clear, 4 spheres, 3 of them permits you to conquer or bring or gain authority over cities, villages, and big villages. For example, military, it's straightforward. You build an army, you get in. And what a war setting will give you is it will give you the population and spoil of war, meaning they will raid everything that was in the village and bring it back. For example, a village would bring you back 1,000 people and $100,000. For diplomacy, I actually will start with the economy. With the economy, you can buy out a city, a village, or a big village, or a major city. So it's going to give you a cost for the city, and we'll talk about it later. And when you buy it, what you do is you buy the population and the army within the city. So at that point, for a village, you would gain the 1,000 population and whatever standing army that villages would have. Diplomacy is a bit a mix between war and the buyout. It's going to give you the population, which is 1,000. It's going to give you a bit of the soldiers and a bit of the resources that the village had. So it's a bit more friendly to do it. It's a longer process, obviously, than going the economic and war way. But at that point, it strained the relation a bit less, because when you're bringing new population within your city because you conquered it, then at that point, you will see it will impact a lot of stats for your city. So you have to manage it and work on it. All right. So the next spreadsheet is the records. The records are basically a link between the administrator and the player. For example, if you look at turn one, you have your action. So the administrator would say, I don't know, hire light infantry. And then in the description, he would say 1,000 because that's what you wanted to do. And then he would write the amount of AP, the number of time you do it, and the total cost. And once he writes that, then your amount of AP will be lowered, and then so on and so forth. So you have different turns, you have administration costs. So that section is to keep track. So let's say you do an action that you want to do every 10 turns. We can put notes there, or before ending our session, you say, shit, I wanted to do this. Can you write that for next turn? I can write it down. Also, it gives us a sense of timing, because if a player attacks you or you attack a player, we will reveal that at the appropriate action point or the appropriate time, when it happens to your turn or when it happens to that player's turn. When it comes to action, I got a lot of text about, do we have a list? How does it work? Will you help me through? Don't worry. As you play, you will figure it out. We're going to be there to advise you. Usually, what I ask the player is, what are you trying to accomplish? And from there, I'm going to give options. Because basically you can do whatever you want. And that's the beauty of Emperor, is that it's really open format. You can decide to get married. You can decide to hire soldiers. You can hire, I don't know, peelers, which are cops. You can build infrastructure. You can explore. You can decide to exploit resources. You can decide to do alliance, trade. So there's multiple choices, and it goes really depending on what's happening on right now and what you want to accomplish in the future. So I wouldn't worry about it. In your mind, you should be aware of what you're trying to accomplish, and from there we'll be able to make it work. And as I go through the spreadsheet, already you'll start probably figuring out or writing down type of the things you want to do. So those are the turns. So you do two turns in a week. The first turn is the winter, spring, and the second one is the summer fall. So in the first turn, all the money dealing is happening, meaning your soldiers are getting paid, your employees are getting paid, your revenues getting in. And for the second turn, which is summer fall, then it's all the food portion. So grain, beef, or whatever fishing you have going happen in the summer and the fall. So each turn also, from an economy point of view, something to look about. So if you're buying soldiers, remember one portion will be paid in your first turn, and the second part will be paid in your second turn. Obviously, employees and units are paid in grain in LB. So for you, let's explain now. LB is large bronze. It's your common coin across the game. You are able to build your currency, which is the second tab we can see. And if you build your currency, it has different values and different things to keep in mind. So first, to build your own coin, you need a resources, which is copper, iron, gold, silver, a material that let you actually mint your own coin. And then for the economist out there, you will want to work on your economy score. You'll want to work on your economy skills. You will want to start having good passive and active revenue. So all there, you will need to be able to work to make it value, to make a higher value than LB. So If your money is worth more, stuff costs less to build. So that's the big advantage. The second advantage is if you're going to be one of your cities going to be bought out by another player, he needs to do it in your coin, which is very, very, very hard to do. That being said, what's the disadvantage of a coin? Well, if your coin is worth less than the LB, then everything is more expensive. What stays the same is all your wages. So it's too hard for us, and we don't have the proper macros to be able to fluctuate the wages. So your wages stays the same. It's just paid in your coin or in LB. So the tab after that is your religious objective tab. So two big component of the game is religion and culture. So you will see as you expand in the world, at one point you're going to hit villages, cities, nation that don't have the same religion or the same culture as you. And as you hit that, it's going to affect the way your cities and your empire works, because it's going to create tension. It's going to create all sort of social and diplomatic problems. So for the players out there that are more diplomatic and social, that transition is usually smoother. For people that are more war oriented or economy oriented, that transition is usually harder. It depends on your style. Again, there's no right or wrong style. We have over the years seen players with different style winning. So Chad, Julie, our past champion are more war related. If you look at Paul, Derek, which usually one of them plays the Pope. This year it's going to be Paul. Derek's going to be a nation. They are usually a bit more diplomatic and socially oriented. So assassination, plot, propaganda, all sort of things that will create a nightmare for your nation. Then you have our winner of last year, Francis, that's more economy based, that did very, very well. And then you have, and that's about it. So don't try to take a style that is not you because you think it's the winner. Play within your style and you'll have fun, which is the goal. And then you may have success with your system. It's just, it takes time to figure out. So coming back to our religious objective, as you can see, depending on your things, it will give you more action points. So holding the Vatican, if you're Christian, gives you 15 AP. And Nara is in Japan. For the Buddhism people, Muslim, the Imam, every nation has one. So we had to adapt. Thank you to Adam. That was great to sit down with me and explain to me how Islam works and the ins and outs. So for the if you're Muslim, if you're the bigger nation, your imam has more power. So at that point, you would gain the AP. New Delhi for Hinduism. And for pagans, since we have different type of pagan, and you'll see that later on. Basically, if you have the biggest religious infrastructure within the pagan nation, you get 15 action point. Now, all that being said, if you possess those cities, or you are the biggest Muslim nation, or you have the biggest religious infrastructure, you are going to be called out. Meaning we will announce it. Just like I am telling you now, Paul is a bishop and he plays actually from the Vatican and he hopes to be the Pope. So he has the Vatican right now. So You will see a lot of messages appear on our Facebook page about what he's doing. So, but because he's in the Vatican, he gets the 15 action point more per turn. So culture, a bit less there because we consider vassalage into culture. So culture objective is having the biggest cultural infrastructure, gives you 10 action point more per turn. I should specify that for the new players. So those action points are per turns. Um, and if you are the biggest cultural empire, so at that point, there's several culture, and that's written on your city page and your character page. So if you're the biggest king and nation empire, we will give you 1 AP per nation square you possess. Now, vassalage. Vassalage is new, having a vessel. In the past years, what happened with that is that when a player conquered you, you were dead, and that was it, and we were moving on. Vassalage did not happen. So, if you want, we're going to talk about it. I'm going to use the manual to try to be consistent on the information I'm giving so you understand how that's going to happen. So, I'm an empire and I conquered Diego. Diego was another player. I played a terrific turns, and we fought it out for several weeks, and I win. So there's a possibility now for me to take Diego as a vessel. So I know Diego loves that example because he's losing, but uh, regardless, I win against Diego. Diego is done. There's two way of doing this. Now we can actually, I as the conqueror can actually ask Diego to become my vessel, and Diego can also ask to be my vessel. Know this, it goes through the administrator. Why? Because the conqueror may say no, and we don't want to create tension. So, or you may say, I played the game, that was fun, I had enough. I'm stopping here. And if I was to ask that, Diego could tell the administrator, I don't want to be a vessel. For me, that was the game. It was super fun, but I rather play as a king than playing as a vessel. And that's your right to. So, what are the things that happens when you have a vessel? First of all, this is when this tab is becoming very important. Just know that as you have more skill set in diplomacy, as you can see, it's purple, you become more able to take more cities within the empire as a vessel. So the first thing that we need to say is that the king, so we'll call them king and vessel, so it's simple. The king or the queen will pay 35 action point per week to have a vessel under them. Can you have more than one? Yes. Just know it costs 35 action point per vessel. So once that's paid and the vessel is activated, the player, the king and the queen will keep all the sheep with all his cities and everything in his empire tab, and you'll see that later on. But the vessel now will also see his cities that he's in charge of. And why would you get a vessel? It's easy because that vessel can administer all the civic rates of those cities, can administer the military, he can build army, he can build ships, he can create an economy where he can push money to his king and provide him with valuable resources. And as a king and queen, for the experienced player, you know how it is to manage 18 cities and trying to figure out a disease here, rebellion there, crime here, religion, culture, all of that happening and you have 18 of them, it feels sometimes you're doing more in min than conquering. So that vessel can come in, and it's one city, one village now, but I if he becomes more and more efficient in diplomacy, that I've seen, we tested the number, he can has up to 10, 15 cities and 10 and 15 villages, which can create a lot of resources. So what can the vessel do and not do? Well, a vessel can actually research technology. He can attack cities and villages within the nation itself. So let's say I'm Novgorod, I've conquered half of Novgorod, I'm going into the Finnish tribe. I conquered their Diego in the Finnish tribes because he was playing Finland. Um, then he becomes my vassal, but I didn't finish conquering Novgorod, so he can come in and now finish that empire for me. He can attack with boats. He can defend with boats, and again, he can attack within my empire. But he can defend from anywhere. So he could lead the defense um, from an attacking player. He can't attack though. So I would defend in my city. Let's say another example, Chad is there. Chad is attacking me. Diego can manage the whole defense thing while I'm moving around and going in his back to attack his nation while he's attacking me. So those are the type of strategies a vessel can let you do. It can manage city villages. We talked about that. They can send engineers within your own land. This is how you discover your resources. So those orange little square that says iron, salt, clay, they're discovered by engineers. So at that point, just know that those engineers can be sent higher and sent by that vessel. He can also do economy treaty within the kingdom with other cities and create a network of economy that within that structure. So what can a vessel not do? It cannot declare war on another nation. It cannot send explorers outside of the kingdom. It cannot send engineers outside of the kingdom. It cannot send troops outside of the kingdom either. What they can do is they can send troops to their liege, so the king and the queen, and they can use those soldiers to go attack another nation. They cannot engage in diplomacy or economy with other kingdoms. That's the king and queen. And they cannot create treaties and alliances outside of the kingdom itself. Now, another thing you can do is you can actually name one of your vessel as an advisor, and we'll see what those advisors are later on. And those advisors can give you bonuses and perks if you want in the game. Just keep in mind though that you still have to pay 35 action points for that player. So that's Vassalage in a nutshell. Again, it's all in the book. You can read it. If you have questions, you can always write to me. But what is Vassalage. So if you conquer a player, could be a friend, could be somebody you don't know, could be somebody that has a lot of experience. For example, if I was to conquer a Chad or a Derek, or a Julie or a Francis or a Paul that played the game for many years, those are the type of vessel, if they want to be a vessel, that you would keep, right? Because the knowledge pool is big. So, and then you can speak with them and ask them questions and have their opinion on what's going on. So the next box beside it is all that has to do with your action points. So the way Emperor works is that each turn has a number of action point. An action point can be gained through skills, can be gained through stats, can be gained through religious objective, cultural objective. It can be also gained if you declare yourself king and queen. What does that mean? It means at that point that your nation, you are saying, I am the leader of that nation. What does it do? It's simple. Every city within that nation that's not conquered is declaring war on you, and I'm telling the players where you are. Again, I'm Novgorod. I declare myself king of Novgorod. A message will come up on the Facebook page saying my character's name, Victor of Novgorod is now king of Novgorod, and in bracket Bruno. So everybody will now know that Bruno is Novgorod, and will know that Novgorod has an active player in it. Another way of getting action point is to unite your nation. So if I conquer every city and major city in my nation, I have now united those people, and that will give me extra action points. Um, Obviously, the more you have, the better it is. Right now, when you start, that's just an example. You will have between 15 and 25 action points. So once you do your action points, there's different way to have it, to have more action points. So turns take a bit more time, but you can do more actions. So that is the record tab in a nutshell. Basically recording some ideas of action, your currency, because you want to keep an eye on it. You want to know, if I start my currency, what's the value? Am I meeting some religious, cultural objective? Because that's going to give me more action point. Do I have a vessel? And if I am a vessel, at that point, how many cities and villages can I have? And am I meeting that requirement? Can I take an extra village? Hey, king, queen, I can take an extra city if you want to give that to me. And what it does is basically the admin cost of that city. And that's another thing we should say, is that every city that you have and village that you have costs administration point. So you spend 5 action point per city to administer it, and 3 action point per villages. So the more cities you have, the more villages you have, the more administration costs you have, the less you can do. So at that point, that's why I say, if you put it and give it to the vessel, you are not spending those action point in managing it. It's actually the vessel that has to do it. So it gives me more action points. Character. All right, perfect. So character is split in different levels, in different sections. So the first one is your character information. Fairly simple: your name, your gender, where you're from, your religion, and your culture. And that's important to note: your religion and culture, because any nation you will conquer that doesn't have your religion or your culture will have some headache. So we will have to convert, we will have to change the culture. It takes energy, it takes money, it takes action point. So we really want to be aware of our religion and culture, your percentage of death, and your age. So everybody starts at 18 years old, and we will start rolling for your death starting at 30. So the first 12 years, or if you want, the first 12 weeks of gameplay, it doesn't really matter. All right. So going back to Regency now. So new things that's been created, and it's so fairly new that I will just describe it in general. I have still to learn it by heart, and I do apologize by that. But what is Regency? So in Emperor, you need to understand the oldest son takes over. So if you die and you have a son of age, he will take over the empire. So it always go with the oldest son going down the line of sons. So let's say you have two sons, the first one dies, then the second one takes over. If you have no sons or your two sons are dead for some reason, we will go to the older daughter and then we'll go down your list of daughters. Now, let's say you get killed, but you have a son that is 10 years old. So at that point, usually the game would be over for you. What we added this year is the rule of regency, meaning, okay, the game's not done. You have a younger son, you can play that son, and in the meantime, your advisors and the mother or the father, if you play a woman, will manage the kingdom just enough to get through until you turn 13 and can take possession of the kingdom. Things to understand: those action points you have when you're under regency will only go into your skill and your stat. You cannot manage your empire. It will stay status quo. There's exception, they're all in there. One of the exception is if you get attacked, you can defend yourself using the action point you have acquired and the skill set you have. You will also see the ranking, which you see scores on the right hand side of the character information. You have letters going from A plus to E, and you have their score beside it. So obviously, if you have a son that is A or A plus, he will get tons of bonuses to his skill and stats, while a son that is an E will have less or none. So regency, again, it's a rule where you don't die if you have a son or daughter under 13. You just go into a special rule. Now being said, everything's being managed by the advisors in the other parent. So at that point, the progression is stalled, it's stopped while the others keep going. All right, after that, family information. After character information, you have your spouse, husband stats. Know that a husband and a spouse will help you with administration and they will give you extra action points. So having a husband and a wife early is a good way of gaining action points quicker in the game. Doesn't mean you have to do it right off the bat. You can wait, because some of the players, what they do is they marry in a family. So you have a major city, he has a daughter, no sons, you marry her, he dies, fishing accident, you take over that city. So you married in and you gain a major city out of it. So that's a way of doing it too. For that, you have to explore. So you would get married later on the game. Children information, like I told you, have children. It's important, especially now with the regency rule. Kids do give you bonuses to certain stat and skills. So feel free to have as many as you want. And if you die, you have somebody to take over for you. After that, you have your advisors. You have your general, which is your war advisor. You have your steward advisor, economy, religious advisor, which is diplomacy, and people advisor, which is social. Again, the colors tells you where they're linked to. You can see where their bonuses for their skills are. Obviously, everything military wise, a general will help you with mobility, will help you with your defensive score, will help you with your war score. We'll see it later. So it's a good way of having a kind of an edge during warfare. A steward, any economy player will tell you a steward gives awesome bonuses to your economy. If you know what you're doing, he will certainly help you make a lot of money. The religious advisor will help you through all the diplomacy things. More importantly, the diplomatic advisor will help you with vesselage. So if you're a vessel, you're a king with a vessel, you want an advisor there to help mitigate some of the issue and provide, if I'm a vessel, provide you with more city to control. The people advisor, like you'll see it in the city, they are all about the people. So again, if you get into another nation that has a different culture, the people advisor may help there. If you get into a nation that has a different religion, a good religious advisor will help you there. If they are not, um, another rule in regency is if you don't have a full advisor panel or council, regency does not take effect. So make sure to have an advisor in all of them later in your life, because if you die and you have a child and you're missing a general or a religious advisor, then at that point regency cannot happen. All right, moving on. Stats. So your character is divided in two: his stats and his skills. Stats is what is gain when you're born, your strength, how you're tall, how big you are, how resistant you are, how easy for you to get information or retain information. So stats are basically everything that is you. Skills is everything that you learn. So it's knowledge base. So every stats is linked to something. So strength, for example, is linked to your immune system and to your score, your war score. So strength, constitution, if you want to go war, that's a good way of going. It also gives you health. And why is it important to have health if you go to war? Because if you lead your army, you can get injured. An arrow can be deflected and hit you. The computer does roll for that. So, what does it mean leading your own army? Um, if you lead your army cannot be bribed. If your army is led by your general can be bribed, and the army can switch side. If you have a son, you have two sons, one takes over the kingdom, his brother is 100% loyal. Now, the players always ask the same question: can I define I have a brother right now, a sister? And the answer is no. It only through your children can you create that system. So if you lead your army because you don't want it to be bribed, at that point, strength constitution would be important to you. Now, intelligence and willpower is and knowledge are basically what drives your action point two. So those are stats that will help you get bonuses to skill, will help you get action points, will help you discover in your research a lot more stuff. So those are the stats that are important. Presence is everything that has to do with diplomacy, treaty, alliances, if you want to take the diplomatic route a bit more. So presence would be important. I want to do a little side conversation. We are in 1100s. The main way to conquer and expand was through war. You can be an economist, you can be a diplomat, you can be very strong socially. But I'm telling you, war is what driven those times. If you look in any history books, war was a major component to it. So it's nice to have the others. Keep in mind, though, that having an army is important. So after the stats, That's finishing my little side conversation. We're coming back. You have your stats there. You have your nation, which is all 12. And then you have points already on your character sheet. 2, 1, 4, 5, doesn't matter. That is bonuses because of your culture, of your nation. So every nation and culture has bonus stats. That's where you would see them. And then your total is the number of your nation stats in 12, which is your basic stats. Now, you can work and raise those numbers further. 5 action point will give you 1 point in any of your stats. So 5 points for 1 stats, 1 point for 1 skill point. And we'll talk about it later. So you could raise your strength, constitution, knowledge, or presence by spending 5 points. You would raise them by 1. Right beside your stats, you have what we call the points section. You see action point, health point, immune system point, war point, diplomatic point, and economy point. So if you look beside it, you can see in order the stats that are considered in those amount of points. So in action point, knowledge is the first component, intelligence is second, and willpower is third. So if I was to put points in knowledge, I would gain more action point down the road. Health, it's constitution first, then strength, knowledge. Immune system is strength, constitution, willpower. And then war, strength, knowledge, presence. Diplomacy, presence, will, intelligence. And then economy, intelligence, knowledge, will. So if I'm going to plan to be an economist and have a good economy, intelligence is the stats for me. If I'm a more diplomatic, presence, that I'm a bit more war, strength. And if I want more action point, it's knowledge. So that's how to read that table. Now, higher on the right, you have your list of skill. And again, we try to put the colors to kind of let you know. So red is war, green is economy, the orange section would be all the farming and the food part, and then the blue is diplomacy, and purple is social. So those skills are all explained in the book. 2 skills that are completely new to this game is elimination and protection. Why? Because we have a new system which is part of the battle module. I get all excited because we worked really hard on them. In previous games, the way it worked is if I send an assassin, and it was counted through different things, and if you had bodyguards and it passed, you died. That system kind of got modified a bit. An assassin has a score, a percentage, and you'll see it later on. In your bodyguards, and your skill gives you a percentage of defense. If the assassin passes, your percentage of assassination is greater than the percentage of defense of the opponent I'm trying to kill, then the assassin passed through. Depending on the difference on that percentage, different things can happen. That's where my health point becomes very important too. If I have a lot of health point and the percentage is smaller, I may actually survive. I'll lose action point for 1 turn, 2 turns, 3 turns, 4 turns, but I stay alive. So that's those 2 skills point where they get really important, and they're very different this year. So if you want to assassinate a lot, elimination and protection is 2 things to consider. Now, which is even more exciting, special units. If you look at them, there's a special units called a shashim, which is from the Persian culture, and they have plus 25% to any assassination attempt if that special unit is your assassin. On the other side, you have the Varygian guards, which is linked to the Greek culture, And basically they are the top bodyguards because they add 25% of your to your defense against assassination, which bring you in a better position to survive if somebody sends you an assassin. So, like I said, different skills, read about it. They have little notes beside it. It gives you an idea of what happened. So, influence, for example, it lowers fear. And we'll see that later on. If you have infrastructure in green here, I'll get to it. Infrastructure, it lowers your upkeep. We'll talk about it later, but all those are great skills to possess. Obviously, it's one for one. So if you want, the higher a skill can be is 100%, but you have bonuses. And bonuses are given through your war and economy score, but also through your stats. So some of those skills will be raising even though you're not putting any points into it because your stats is going up and their bonuses is being applied. And if you look at it right now, you can see a lot that I have 1 point already in some of the stats, in the skills, in totals, because of the amount of point I have in certain stats or in scores. So that is your skills section for your character. Now scores. You will hear about, so different points. You have your stats, your points, your skills, and your scores. Stats, what I am at birth and how I'm built. Skills, knowledge, things I've learned. Points gives me bonuses in doing more action, gives me protection if damage wants to be done to me, immune system against disease, war, my ability to lead an army, diplomacy, my ability to do a treaty, and economy, my ability to make money. Scores. Scores are general stats. It takes in consideration your stats, your skills, your points, your advisors, your empire. It is an overall score of that sphere. Remember at the beginning, I talked about 4 spheres: war, diplomacy, economy, and social. Those are your overall grade, if you want, in those. So, diplomacy, your diplomacy score is right here. For me, it's 10%. What does it mean? It means if I'm trying to take over AI through diplomacy, I have a 15% chance of it happening at this point. Now, keep in mind, if I go a village or a major city, there's modifiers, so I have more or less 15% chance of it happening. My war score is at 2%. Not very rah, not very war oriented right now. I need to work on that. That means certain bonuses can be applied, but only 2%, which is not a great score. I may be bad at war, but I'm even worse socially. I'm at 1%, meaning that any of my social movements, civic rates, we'll talk about it later, is not really having any bonuses because I only have 1% in my social scores. In my economy, it's even worse. I'm at 0%, so I have no knowledge whatsoever of the economy around me. So anything I do get absolutely zero bonuses. So your scores are important. Why are they important? Because I'm sending my general to war. My war score is considered in how my army is going to handle themselves going to war. Same thing with my social initiative, my economy initiative, or my treaty and building and my alliances, since my diplomacy score is so low. All right. Things to note: under your economy scores, you have numbers there. So I can buy out a city, no question asked, for $1 million. I can buy a big village for 500,000 and a village for 250,000. Your major cities need different components, and depending on the size and the economy, they will have different amount of for each other, but they'll be noted there. Obviously, you cannot buy out a city that you don't have on your map. So at that point, just be careful to not say, oh, I think that cities are like Novgorod is to the north. How much would it be to buy it? You can't, because it's not on your map. Now, we spoke about the new system of assassin, spies, and bodyguard. It's all at the bottom left. Sorry. So spies and anti-spies work differently this game. So last year, the way it worked is if I had more I had the information. So you can spy on somebody else. You can actually send spies to all the cities. And what it does is I copy paste their city into your list of cities, so you see exactly what is in there. It's a snapshot, it's static. So meaning that I'm not updating that every week. You have to ask for it, and then I'll do the copy paste. Um, so just keep in mind that it is a snapshot of what's happening there. This year, you have percentage, you have scores. So whatever happened with the scores, so even if my spy percentage is higher than my anti-spy, I can have maybe just a certain amount of information, because the difference between those two are not high enough. So that's the new system. So if you have spies, or you decide to have anti-spies, just know that that percentage will will make the difference. So now next you have the assassin score and the bodyguard score, and that's what I was speaking about. So right now my assassin score is at 15%, and my bodyguard is at 6, meaning the assassins coming through, it passes the bodyguards, because I have 0 bodyguards. So if I was to add 250 bodyguards, for example, my percentage goes to 18. The assassin doesn't pass, he gets killed, and we move on. So that's the new stats. Now, obviously, you have the skills we talked about: protection, elimination, that helps the assassin score and the bodyguard score. Obviously, this special unit. It's in red, so my war score will influence the assassin score, and my social score will influence the bodyguard score. So the better war score I have, the better bonuses my assassins have, and the better I'm at socially, the better percentage I will have to have decent protection against assassins. So that's the character sheet. Like I said, it's very oriented towards the character. Again, 4 things: stats, skills, points, and scores. The next tab, called Empire, is also a good way to have a snapshot of your empire. You have 1 city now, so you can look only at your city and have all the details. But at one point, you'll be expanding, and you may have vessels. You may have like 18, 20, 25, 30 cities. And any experienced players will tell you that it's hard to go sheet by sheet and try to figure out what is happening. The Empire page will give you that. It's going to tell you the number of population in each city. What's the crime rate? What's the percentage of fire spread, the disease, the rebellion rate, the religions rate, the culture rate, the income in grain and LB. What do you have in your treasury? What's your structural? Structural is a stats that tells you the value of building stolo. So it's your passive income if you want. Do I have central economy? So side discussion, what is a central economy? That's another concept in Emperor. So a central economy is when you decide to bring all the deficits and all the profits to your capital, in the sense that all the income goes to the capital, and from the capital, all the deficits will be paid. To have a central economy, you need roads, you need transport to bring that money in and out. So, what's the advantage? Well, the advantage is you can buy any infrastructure for any city from your capital when you're in a central economy. Where if you don't, the money needs to be in that city for you to build something in that city. So you can't, from the capital, just say, I'm buying this. If the money's not in that city, you can't. Also, if that city gets conquered and there was money in it, the money goes to the person that conquered it. Where in the central economy, the money is all put in the capital, meaning if they conquer that city, yes, they have that city, but they have no resources in that city. So, great system seems very positive. Why wouldn't I have a central economy? Well, for two main reasons. One, you have roads. Roads make military units move twice as fast. Meaning, if you have road from every city to your capital, he conquers a city. He only has to follow the road. He doesn't have to explore that much. He just gets the road and goes down it as fast as he can, and bam, he's at your door. So it's important to understand, if you have a central economy, that your empire is protected at the end, at the edge. Because if an army passes through and get on that road, it's very dangerous for you. So that's the central economy. So it will tell you if you have a central economy there or not. Then you have stands available. So your market is how you make money in Emperor. Right now it's minus 41. So my markets are full, or my economy is too weak to build any markets. I would have to work on that. Religion, infrastructure. Do I have any churches at that city? Zero, I do not. Shipyards. Shipyards build boats. Do I have shipyards? Yes or no? Right now, I don't. Do I have assassins, soldiers, spies, and boats? So it gives you a snapshot of every city. So imagine you have 18 of them. So then at that point, you would have 18 lines, and it's easy to say, oh, there's a rebellion problem in city number 5. Oh, I need more soldier in number 2. Oh, I need to work on my income, and they'll be in city number 15. Oh, I need to build boats in number 7. So it gives you an idea of what to do and where the issues are. So it will also give you all your economy alliances or treaties that you have with other people, which is the add-on this year. So you don't have to look for it. You know how much money you're doing with your economy, trades, alliance, and treaties. All right. The other part that we have is the research tab. So in Emperor, you can research stuff. So a good one that I give as an example, so everybody will hear it equally, is farming. You can research farming. The first level of farming research is irrigation. So if you have that and you research that, once it's completed, all your farms will get irrigation and will become better. So have a higher percentage of of um, of food. So at that point, you can research different things. I won't get too much into it. You have to research your special unit. Once you research, you have it. Once you have it, you can build it. You build academies. You can research your C special unit. Some nation has it, other nation don't. And once you conquer another nation, one city and somebody else, you can then in that city research their special unit, being the land unit or the sea unit. So the bigger I expand, the more access to different special unit I have. So the better I become as an empire. So that's the research one. So Empire tab has all my cities, my economy, alliances, treaty, and movement, and all my research stuff. All right, my last tab, and probably the one with the most detail, is my city tab. So you will have one tab like that per city you have. So again, why do I not have 150 cities? They cost 5 action points each. So if I have 10, I spend 50 action point in administration. Why would I get a vassal is trying to move that along, and it cost me a 35 action point fee. But if they have more than 7, then instead of paying 40 in administration, I pay 35 as a vessel. I kind of gain a lot of stuff. Plus, I don't have to deal with the rebellion, the the fire, the crime, and stuff. My vessel does that. So if I have less cities, I have more action point. I have more action point. I can do more stuff. Now, the bigger you get, the more city you'll have. You're it's kind of logical. And some of the cities you want city there to build their special unit too, so it's very important to keep some of those cities. I'm just saying that you want to try to limit it. So city tabs. On top is all your general information that usually we look at first. So your income. So this my city right now is doing minus 6,600 in LB. And my income in grain is 33,000. For all your cities right now, if you look at it, you're all between 28,000 and 30,989. We're trying to bring that as close to each other. Why do we have a bit of a difference? Because some of the cities are in the mountains. So how do we define which cities you have to start with? It's completely a random number generator that will place you within your nation, within a square, and then we'll define how many cities there are in there, and then we'll roll to put you in a city randomly. So if that city is in mountains, you will have less farming, you will have more money. We try to maximize, but sometimes if you're in all deep mountains, it's a pretty shitty city. So we try to give you as much as we can, but know that, the best we can get. I think the lowest one is 26,000. So you're still close to the 30,000 mark we were trying to aim for, but because of the scenario. But that being said, you're in mountains, you're hard to reach. It's a good way to start defensively. So you just have to use the advantage of being in the mountain. So your economy score, told you it was important. It's at 0%. It's put that. And that's the amount it costs to buy out the city. So 1,244,822 LB will get you that city. So what's the rule with buyouts? In previous game, you could buy any city out. Last year, we put the new system, and we've decided that you can buy any city that the king or queen is not in. Now, if you're leading an army, the city you are in is where you are at that moment. Meaning, if you're leading an army, your city is actually that army. So I could buy the city if you were with that army. Now, I would have to define that you're not in the city, define that you're with the army and where you're at, and that I would try to do with spies. And once I define that, I would buy the city. You would still be in the game because you still have that army. So you have a chance to conquer another city or turn around and conquer the city that was buyout. But that's the rule for buyout. Central economy, it's right there. Your treasury, so everybody start with 250,000 LB, 250,000 grain, and you start with a wooden wall, which is the lowest of the walls. You have your diplomacy score and your social score. So, next section, it's called social cultural, and for a reason. So, the first table to the left is your religion. So you have a mix of what religion, you have your main religion, that's your higher percentage. You have religion that are opposite of yours. Obviously, if you're Christian, Muslim and pagans are not your friends. If you're pagan, usually Christian are not your friends. If you're Hindu, Buddhism is kind of the religion that's going against you. And all of that mixed with your culture. So right here, for an example, in City 1, I'm Mesoamerican, meaning I'm probably Aztec or Mayan. That's my main one. So my main one would be 80%, and you would have all the stats that lower. Again, in the culture associated, you would see which culture is associated with yours, meaning if I conquer those culture, it will have a minimum impact on my culture. The opposite culture is the one that if I conquer, I will have the greatest problem because of the culture difference. So just keep in mind, what's my religion in that city? What's the culture in that city? Because I may conquer a city that has a different religion and culture, and that city will represent that. And because it's representative, all of that will be reflected in my civic rates, which is the column right beside it. What are my civic rates? Crime. Do I have a lot of crime in my city? Is there a lot of chance of fire? And if there's a fire, will it spread quickly and make more damage, which is fire spread? Disease. We're in medieval time. You know that period was renowned for disease. Fear. How much do the people fear me? How happy are they? And what's the percentage of rebellion against me? What's my immigration rate? Because if I build, you'll see, if you build a big city and it has wonderful civic rates and have a great economy and socially and diplomatically, it's awesome. That immigration rate will be huge. That brings new people, which brings new men. With new men, I can hire more soldiers. If I hire more soldiers, I have a bigger army. If I have a bigger army, I'm able to conquer more. So immigration rate, birth rate is important also. You can do celebration. They'll give you really short-term bonuses for a number of weeks. Those are great when you conquer a city that is not of your culture and religion. Everything's going sideways. You're about to get 1 million rebellions and stuff like that. You do a celebration. You put a bunch of money in food. People celebrate. I don't know. You do gladiators game and things like that, carnivals, whatever. And at that point, people are more focused on celebration than they are to kill you. Then after that, you have your unrest, oppression, religion score, and culture score. So the higher or the lower, depending on how they work. Unrest, the lower is better. Unrest is done by your advisors. The better the advisor, the less unrest you have. Oppression score comes from your fear. It comes from your religion, your culture, your peelers, which are your cops. The more oppressed they are, the less happy they are, the more rebellion you have. So those are all rates that will basically be rolled every week. So if you have a crime rate of 70 and the computer defined that there was crime, I will take money and food from your treasury. If there's a fire, and the fire spread is high, you will lose infrastructure. With infrastructure are usually the one that brings you money. If you have disease, a disease will come to your city, and if it's not dealt with, then it's going to move onward. And if it hits other cities, and those cities may be handled by AI, and they get stronger and stronger, then they will affect regions. And if they keep going, they will affect continents. And if they affect continents, then they stay in until 50% of them are successful at stopping it. Then it's all going down. So a disease could start in France and kill millions of people in China, just because it expanded and nobody solved it, nobody stopped it. So it got bigger and bigger and bigger. And when it hit China, it was atrocious and killed half your population. So keep your eye on disease. Beside that, you have your population. So your number of men, number of women, children, elder, your birth, your immigration, and the people that die. So you start with 35,000 population, and depending on all those rates, you will gain population and you will lose. If you lose population, it's because there's more death than immigration and birth. And if it goes up, it's the opposite. So you have your social class beside it. Why do we put that there? It's because your economy is driven a bit by it. If you have people, a lot of people, and those people have money, they spend money. If they spend money, your economy's better. If everybody's poor, then at that point, your economy is struggling and you will see loss of money. Self-employed, unemployed. Why is unemployed important? Because that's how many soldiers you can hire, right? Possible soldiers, 8,778. It says that right now I could hire that many soldiers and then everybody would be employed. Things to understand. Soldiers that I hired are removed from the population. Why? Because when they die, they cease to exist. You can come to a point where your city has no more men or not enough men to keep your economy going. And if that happened, then you will see the city implode and crash. So you want to be careful on how many soldiers you're hiring in one city. Again, if you don't have a choice, you don't have a choice. You're defending your empire, you have to go, but keep in mind how many you're hiring at one time. All right, next tab, the food tab. So, different food: corn, wheat, rice, oats. Hopefully, I think we pretty much put the right type of grain for your sheet. Right now, you can see my efficiency of my farming is 80%. Remember, we spoke about irrigation, good way of putting that up. We also have skills on agriculture, good way to put that up. The number of farms I have, right now I have 180. It will give me, if I sell all my grain, it will give me $21,000 or 130,000 grain. So, an emperor with everything, you have the ability to keep it and feed or to sell it for money. Now, the first one is pretty standard. It's your farming. The second one is what we call derivative. I think it's in English, the dérivé in French. So things you can do with grain you have. So if you were to take those farm and instead of doing corn like I'm doing right now, you could actually farm barley. What does barley do? It does alcohol. If I do alcohol, I can have breweries, and breweries will sell my beer to my population, and that will give me money. I can have and build hay. And why would I build hay? It's because I could go to the alternative food and buy bovine, pig, and chicken and have my grain or money with the animals. So, why would I have animals and not farms? Animals move. So, if I need to move a large army along and I'm unsure of how long they will be gone, I can always bring animal with them. So even if that city's taken, my army it keeps being paid, keeps being fed, and keeps being a terror for anyone around me because I don't depend on a city. What happened if I send 100,000 soldiers to attack an enemy, and somebody comes in and grabs that city where those soldiers are from? Then at that point, those soldiers becomes to that person because it's attached to the city. By having animals like that, you cut that link and it's independent. Hunting will bring you grain, but hunting will also bring you stimulate your market and sell the fur there, the food there. And if you do that, then you are able to expand your market and make more money. Sheep's a bit the same system. They do wool, milk, and cheese are from bovines. All right. The other way of doing food, fishing. So remember when we spoke about the map and it was light blue, deep blue. So coastal is fishing in the ocean. Then you have fishing in lakes and rivers. And deep sea fishing is something you need to research. But as you explore the ocean, there'll be sections where they're really deep blue. And you can actually fish whales and other big fish. And that will bring you grain or money if you wanted to do it. So that's how I bring food to my city and my empire. Now, the question is, how do I know how many farms I can build? How do I know how many animals I can have? So, city possible land is the possibility. So, I have the ability to build up to 540 farms. I have 85 hectare of forest. And why is that important? It is important for hunting. It is important for my lumberjacks. If I want to open a lumber mill, we'll see that later. Those are all ways to define what can I build. And then cattle land, I could have 178 area of for my cattle, so bovine, pig, and chicken. How many fishermen can I hire? It's written there. I'm probably not near water because it's zero all the way. So city land available is what is left to be built. So I had the possibility of 540. I built 180. So now I can expand 360, cattle land 178, and hunting grounds 85 because I have no hunters. So basically, that is the food component of every city. Every city has that component, and they're added through my empire. So you can have cities that are good with LBs, other cities that are bad with LBs. If you have a central economy, they will pay each other off. If you don't have central economy, then you have to move that money from one city to the other to be able to pay the deficit. Now, green, we know we're going into the economy, city economy. Like I said, the most important things in your city that brings money is your markets. So right now I have 1 markets, and each market always have 100 stands. That's the standard. All right. So once I have 100 stands, the maximum is 100 stands. Beside that is the number of stands I built, 90. Again, from character to character, that's going to be modified. Just know you cannot build more than 100 stands. If you want to build more, you have to build another market. So if I build another market, I would then create another 100 stands and I could expand from there. Then the next point is stand possible. Let me zoom that a bit for you here so you can see it better. So right here, stand possible. So right now it's a minus 41, meaning that my market at 90 stands is sufficient. I don't have enough of an economy to expand beyond that. Until that number changed to 10, 20, 100, then I can't really expand my market. And that is linked to my economy skill, to my trades, to my population. Are they rich or poor? How many population do I have in that city? And so on and so forth. So obviously, how do I make money from the market? It is tax. It's 50% tax. I can play with that tax rate. Just know that if I play with the rate and raise it, I may even have less stands available, because then people won't want to go and be in my market. My economy scores, the traffic. The traffic is the number of people that go and see it. 18 is low. Your rent, so you can raise and lower the rent. I have no trade route, which is not helping my market really. The worth of my market, the upkeep. So upkeep of your building is going to be something you're going to hate. So you build a market, great. A market over time will degrade, would kind of break. So your upkeep is the amount of money you're paying to. So the upkeep rate is always 10%. To the right, like I said, I have my total upkeep of all my buildings. The structural, we said it was my passive. It's the worth of all my building put together. The number of money I pay on wages, LB and grain. So my people, that works for me. The tax I do on the LB. So you tax their profit, you also tax their wages, because you're a king and that's what you do. Local trade and income by population, when that's negative, that's usually not good. Now you have all your taxes: tax on upkeep, on markets, on trade, on income, on fishing, on trade, and on farming. You can modify those percentage to get more money or more grain. At that point, just know if you raise it, you have to live with the consequences it brings. Below that, you have your economy rates. So, it is static for this year. It's how everything is worth. We are working on a system right now linked to Google Sheets, that in future years it will take a region and will move the marketplace and the worth of every region. So let's say I play Novgorod, Diego was in the Finnish tribe, which is in the same region, and I sell a lot of oats. So his price of oats will go down. So if he tries to sell oats, then at that point it won't really be a good trade-off. But he has a lot of fish that he sells, and I don't sell fish, so the worth will be higher. So he's going to make a better profit on fish. But right now, like I said, it is static for this year. We can manually change it, and we will if some of the players are starting to do the same thing constantly, always. Like everybody has trade agreement for oats across the land. So at that point, we may change it manually. So infrastructure, all the possible buildings you can build an emperor there. So going from fishing boat, fishing ships. So one is for fresh water, one for salt water, pasture if I have animals, research centers, which helps my research, sewers, aqueducts, well, public bath, hospitals help with disease, helps with Fire helps with different things, statues, schools, culture base, kind of the input there for you. Jail tribunal, crime rate, slave camp. You can have slavery is not from the American Civil War. The slavery was done by the Romans, by the Greek, Byzantine, Persian Empire, some of the Chinese nations. So you can actually have slaves. You just need slavers, and then they have their own system. So it is in the game. Then on the other side, you have all your economy buildings. So your banks, your mint to do your own coin. You would need a bank at that point to be able to keep your coin in stocks, your centralized transport, your central bank, your trade centers. Trade centers puts LB in grain or grain in LB. Your mines refinery, if you have gems or iron or metal, your lumber mill, which is in your forest, and your brewery because you're doing Baileys. And beside that, you have basically all your religious infrastructure, being Catholic, churches, Orthodox, or any of them, they're all there. All right. And finally, at the bottom, we're getting there, of your economy. Perfect. You have to the left here all your military infrastructure. So you can build light and medium units, being infantry or cavalry or light archers, without academies. Yeah. So if you want heavy cavalry, heavy infantry, or heavy archer, you will need academies, and they're all there. SU Academy is special units. Spy Academy, if you want spies, you need an academy. Assassin Academy, same thing if you want assassin. Shipyards build boats. Docks, remember in the new system now, thanks to Diego, the docks lets you see a bit of what is going on in the ocean near your city, but also permits you to bring soldiers into transport ships. So if you don't have docks, you cannot put the soldiers into the ships. And barracks, we'll see what they do later on, but basically every unit has what we call the training percentage. Barracks, what they do is they increase it by 5% every week, every 2 turns. Here you have all your special buildings, being bridge, canals, road, outpost, which is a detection building. We spoke about it. It's in the manual. It detects in a kind of a cross thing in nation square. So side discussion, what is a nation square and what is a region square? So you saw on your starting map, let's go back to your starting map quickly. So that big square is one nation square. It is 20 by 20 little square. Those little square are called regional square. So 400 regional square, 20 by 20, gives you one nation square. So movement for military units are counted in regional squares, and ship movement is counted in nation square. So regional square for land units, nation square for sea units. Explorers do nation square. I know it's confusing a bit, but that's the best we can do so far. So detection outposts detect army coming in the nation square in a cross. So they'll give you that square, the one on top, bottom, left, and right. The ports can be built, and again, it's in the manual now. ports will let you see kind of the coastline and a bit outside of it. And the stronghold is the masterpiece of all. The stronghold will let you see if they are building on the coast. They will let you see every square around it being land or sea. So the stronghold is really the Taj Mahal of detection. Your wall, now it's a wooden wall. You have stone, small, stone medium, large, and huge. Obviously, the bigger the wall, the better protection you have, the more siege engine you need to attack it. So you don't need siege engine for a wooden wall. You can try to take a small stone wall. So a major city with a small stone wall, you can attack without siege engines. It is possible, but just keep in mind that there'll be more casualty. From medium stone to huge stone walls, you need siege engine. Who has that? Well, the players that builds it. And the costs are there. You know, for $1 million, you can have a stone wall, a medium stone wall. That will push your enemy to need siege engine. And with the new battle module, we have three type of fighting. Four type of fighting. You have the open field. My army comes, your army comes. There's no city, nowhere. We just go at it. That's open field combat. There's the siege combat where there's siege engine and there's wall. And now that's going on. So each week there's damage done to not only the infrastructure, but the soldiers inside. And the soldier inside have archers and stuff. They're doing damage to soldier outside. And this is going on until the wall fell. And then it becomes kind of the open field combat. You have raiding. Remember central economy? I spoke about transport. Let's say I have spies, and I know you have transport in the central economy. Because of my spy, I now know those transports are moving and how much they're moving. I could actually get light cavalry, go really fast, attack the transport, and back away. What does that mean? It means I stole that money, and now the emperor, the king, or the queen has to pay the difference. That is raiding. And the last one, which we saw one time in 5 years, but we needed the rule, is let's say Bruno has transport ship and they're unloading soldiers, and I didn't know, but Diego had an outpost, so he's seeing me unloading and moves his army right in. My army cannot all attack his army because I'm unloading. There's so many soldiers I can unload a turn. So at that point, Diego would come in and he would have an advantage. We call that disembark fighting. Really uncommon, but it's there. So that being said, walls are important. The bigger the walls. Now there's 4 cities: Novgorod, Rome, New Delhi, and Shanghai. They are all under the 4-wall major cities. So if you get them, New Delhi, and Nava in Japan. So remember those 4 cities that had a religious bonus to them? They all have 4 walls defending it. So if you get them, good for you, because it's a major city and easy to defend. Now, they all have fallen over time, but it's a good start. Next section, trade routes. So trade routes, trade agreements, trade treaties, and trade alliances are all explained in the manual. What you need to understand is if you have trade routes, they stimulate they bring money to your markets. They bring extra people to your markets. Trade routes can be created also with a trade agreement, which is a trade treaty, or a trade alliance. So they'll be noted there, so you see them. Um, and they will create money in your market. So they don't only give you money in the transaction, but they also give you money at the market level. So having trade agreements, when you have a good economy score, is good. Employment is all your type of civic employees you can have. So apprentice, they work in your mines, bankers in your bank, bodyguards, coiners in your mint. They're all there. Diplomats, doctors, engineers, explorers, horse explorers. So, side discussion, explorers. Um, there's two type of explorers in Emperor. There's the regular explorers that do one nation square at a time. You can hire more and send them all around, but they do one square. The horse explorers cost more, but they can do two squares. The problem, well, not the problem. The thing with horse explorers is if they see they are counted as military units if they encounter um, an opponent, explorers, or any other unit. So I send my horse explorers, Diego sends explorers, we meet, my horse explorers will kill his explorers. What will that create? It gives Diego the chance to declare war on me free of charge, because declaring war costs 35 action points to do. But because I killed his explorers, he can do it for free. So horse explorers explore quicker, but they kill units. They will kill engineers too. They'll kill explorers. So just be aware of that. It doesn't mean Diego will declare war on me. He may not be ready for that, but it's a possibility. So farmers, fishermen, herdsmen, hunters, innkeepers, lumberjack, messenger, peelers, rat catchers, which rat catchers is for the disease, researchers, slavers, traders, upkeepers, and vigile, which is your firemen. So they're all there. Most of them will auto-populate if we buy, for example, if we build a lumber mill, the number of lumberjacks will appear. Others, it's up to your discretion, like peelers, rat catchers, and vigile, for example. They explorers, bodyguards, those are all defined by you. Military, almost finished. Red, military, like I said, we're trying to be color coded. So to the left, you have all your land unit, your infantry, your cavalry, your archers, your siege engine. They give you the type, light, medium, heavy, their HP, the number you have, the breaking morale and training. Remember, I spoke about those barracks being good for training? That's where it comes in consideration. What is breaking morale? Is when you're fighting and a heavier unit is crushing yours and you want to flee. Breaking morale. Training is how much they practice prior to combat. Speed, 20. It's 20 regional square, not 20 nation square. Penalties, done weirdly. If it says all, it means it can go to all terrains. And the opposite of that is no mountains. So cavalry cannot go in mountains. Cavalry cannot go in transport ship either. Only infantry and archers and siege engines. Attack, their attack score, defensive score, and then the LB grain cost. So you have your total in grain and LB, what they cost per year or per week. When you hire new units, you are being charged in LB right off the bat. Let's say I do 10,000 light infantry, it's going to cost me $150,000. and then I pay them yearly. Hiring at the beginning have a cost in LB, and the cost is the LB cost multiplied by the number of units I want to build. So we'll go here just to be consistent. This is your C units. You have your exploring ships. So what does exploring ship do? You can send them in any direction. They're like explorers. They can detect C squares. So explorer ship can do in a straight line or can follow the coastline. They cannot do anything else. Once they do a straight line, they have the coastline, and you can make a triangle. They can now explore anything in that triangle. All right. So they cannot go into unknown space doing zigzags. That doesn't work. They have to do straight lines or follow the coastline. Small transport ship, everybody has some. They carry 250 soldiers. So the more you have, the more unit you can transport. And then you have your specialty here. It's the Basil transport that gives me 350. And then you have the Dow, your military ships. Dow, Bastille, Patashi. Those number here are probably a lot higher on your sheet, and that's perfectly normal. This is the old system compared to the new system. The speed is the speed in nation square. Remember, land was regional, sea is nation squares. Their training, very important, and the cost to build one is right here. Then you go in specialty units and unique units. Your unique units are your assassin, your priest, because the Pope will send priests all over the place to talk about the way of the Lord. What it does is, for him, it's like explorers, spies, and diplomats all in one. So he can get a lot of information on his priests, and that's why there are in unique units. If you build a religious infrastructure, you will have priests attached to it. They'll be in the civilian portion of your city sheets. Spy, anti-spy, we spoke about it. Then you have your specialty unit. It should be named right there. Could be berserkers, could be hussards, could be elephant cavalry, could be a lot of things. They're all named, and all their stats are following that. And their cost is different. Every special unit has their unique cost depending on all their perks and negative. And then you have your transport. Your transport here are your transport that you can bring with you to detach your army from the city. So we spoke about bringing bovine for food. You would bring transport full of money for wages. So that army, if you're leading it, is totally independent of any cities. Villages. Every city that you possess can have a village, and that village will bring you food. We can have also temples, can have lumber mills, can be breweries, so they can bring their portion in money. Just know they cost 3 action points in admin. So cities 5, village 3, a duo is 8. So at that point, they could bring extra stuff for you. It's great for money if you have terraform. So in Emperor, side discussion, you can change the environment around your city to become farmlands. It removes all the wood and stuff like that. But then you can do a lot of farming and a lot of food. You can build a village. The village is considered adjacent to the city. So the map, it's linked. So at that point, they can do the farms also on your farmlands and stuff like that, and bring also food and money if you want to do brewery in them. Those all your city are all your sheets. So that's the presentation. Now I had question. What happens when one of your advisor dies during regency? So regency goes in effect only if you have your four advisors. If one of them dies, then at that point we take for consideration that the other advisors will keep the regency going. That being said, if your advisor, your economic, your steward advisor dies, the bonuses are taken away. Your cities may become in a deficit, and the manual speak about it. What they will is they will go into the treasury and take from the treasury to pay that deficit. If that deficit comes to a point where it cannot be paid, they will start selling cities and remove cities of our empire for 1.5 million a city. If at that point they sell all your city and you're still not of age, you die. So they just go away until you become of age and you can hire more advisors. Any other question? You can write it in our channel, or you can unmute yourself and ask the question. I'm all open for questioning.
I have a couple questions, Bruno, if that's okay.
Yeah,
Can you hear
go
me?
right ahead.
Okay. Do unspent APs roll over, or do you have to basically spend everything you have each season?
They do not roll over, so it's better
Okay.
to spend all of them.
Um, if I build an academy for spies, can I also purchase spies on the same season I built the building?
Yes. So as
Can
soon as you build it, you can start producing them.
Okay, and
It goes for heavy.
like,
Sorry, go
in
ahead.
a similar vein, if I buy an explorer, can I send him out the same turn I bought him?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I got a couple more questions, and hopefully these questions answer other people's questions too. The bonuses
Yeah,
that
for
the
sure.
guide shows for your spouse, are those bonuses that only apply to your chance of having a city join your kingdom? Or do they represent, like, is there a value beyond maybe gaining a free city for spending 35 points on a spouse?
Yes, the spouse will give you bonuses if you go to your character sheet. Give me a minute.
No, I know the spouse gives a
There's a
bonus.
lot of
Is there a difference between a 10
okay.
point spouse and a 35-point spouse besides the chance of maybe getting a free city?
Yes,
And maybe I
because their
misunderstood.
score, depending on the score of your spouse, right? The
Okay,
A plus to the E will also affect the number of bonuses they give you. So if
gotcha.
you get an A plus wife, they may give you take care of half of your administration of all your cities, give you +5 to all your skills, and give you 35 extra APs to spend. I'm just creating numbers, but the better the wife, the more
No,
support she's providing you.
I just wanted to confirm that. That's all, because you made a comment in the game in the chat earlier about spouses that made me think my idea of what they did was different. Um, one last question. Well, I think it's one last question. If you die and you have the regency happen and one of your children takes over, what happens to all the stats and skills you bought? Do they carry to the new leader, or do you just lose them?
You lose them.
Okay,
Depending on your child, again, the level of the child, if he's an A plus, he may retain 25% of all your skills. So the better the child,
the more
I shouldn't
likely
say
those
that
skills
that way.
don't go
That's
away.
exactly.
Okay.
So the more more efficient children will retain more. But if you go in the book, it's well described of all the little tips you can do to help your child up.
Right. Okay. Sorry. One last question. On the sheet, there seems to be a
If you
couple
go on
different
each,
places
yeah,
where action points, like where your starting action points might be listed. I know there's a section in the city that mentions action points, and then on your character sheet, next to all your stats, there's a thing that says action points next to it, and I'm just not sure which. I'm not sure where to find my
yeah.
starting action
Okay.
points.
Points. On your character sheet, it's all bonuses and stuff and any other shit. Your record sheet is the one you look at. It says here action point. On the AC line 3, there's a number there. That's the real number. That is your number.
Thank you. That's what I thought, but I just wanted to confirm. I appreciate your time. Thanks for the
Yeah.
questions. That's all I got for
Because
now.
it's on your character sheet, because if you work knowledge and those skills, it's going to give you bonuses. And then your administration has to be counted in your city, which is 5 per city and 3 per villages. But that's the number you want to read.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Not a
I think that
problem.
might be a
Any
good
other
segue.
questions?
Thank you. It's Kale. I have a question from Blaze, who couldn't make it, but he and I guess I'm also wondering this: what's the best way to can you explain how APs are calculated, and also what's the best way to increase your APs?
The best way to increase your APs is to read the manual and figure out what you want to do to increase your APs. I'm not giving you that answer. Everybody goes in different ways. If you listen to what I explain, I gave you tips here and there on what to work. Obviously, we spoke about spouse and husband. We spoke about knowledge. We spoke about administration. So if you look at your skills, you may have a skill that's called administration. That probably would help. So those are 3 little tips of how to kind of make it better. But okay. I spoke at the beginning of the video also about when you declare yourself king, when you unite your people, the religious objective, the cultural objective also gives APs.
Okay, thank you. And then I had another question.
And the first part of your question, Kale, what?
Just how is it calculated, and
the efficiency
do we get to
of?
Sorry, the for the APs. My first part of the question was how are they calculated, but I think you've answered that mostly. So my next question was you mentioned efficiency of farming as 80%, for example, and the efficiency of other things. I'm wondering if that goes above 100 or if it's up to a theoretical of 100, or can you have your farmers giving 110% if you?
It can go over 100 if you do the right things, right? We spoke about research and we spoke about skills. From there, there's multiple ways to improve farming, but that is the beauty of the game, is for you to find out, and every player has a way of doing it, and that's why I say players play for 15 years and still learn things every day, and that's the beauty of it. But yes, it can go over 100, and if everything is done properly.
Okay, thank you.
Not a problem.
We have a question from the chat.
Can we assassinate our firstborn? Yeah. So, do you want to read them, Diego?
Oh, so we have that one. Can we assassinate our firstborn if he's a disappointment?
Drawn him in the
drawn him in the
answer to that would be yes. very dark, but yes, yes, you could.
Awesome. Also, um, as a DM, will you be giving us general rule of thumb advice? For example, your character might know that this is a bad idea, but you as a new player might not understand your idea is a bad idea.
Me and Diego had a long chat. So we, when we do turns with player, we try to be the advisor council type of thing. Now, the idea is not to tell you what to do, is to give you options. So let's say I have 1,000 soldiers and I say, Bruno, I want to attack a major city. So my answer to that would be okay. So a major city has 75,000 people. They may have about 35% military. So that means they have 15,000 soldiers and they have a stone wall. So do you think you have enough with 1,000 soldiers? So I wouldn't explain to you the the dynamic, the rules around it, and then it would give you an idea if it's a bad one or a good one. But if you were to say I'm attacking Diego in that city, then I would probably just say how many soldiers are you sending, because then you're attacking another players, and I want to stay as neutral as possible. Usually the discussion is more, what do you want to do? I want to do this. Okay, here's our four options of how to get there. Which one would you prefer? Again, if you have more questions, feel free to write to me or Diego. Eventually, in probably sometimes early this week, I'm gonna send a list of who is administered by me, who is administered by Diego, and then you can send their question to any of us. Really, you can use your own administrator, but feel free to use Diego or me, even if you're not the one that's linked to. Um, but yeah, feel free to ask any questions.